Hello everyone, it's Jared with DayTraders FX. Nice to be with you. First off, we were unable to have our typical Monday morning webinar because I was in a little bit, as I called it, an internet black hole. We're traveling this week a little bit. It's spring break and kids are out of school, and so we're doing a little bit of traveling. I'm continuing to trade and watch all of our positions and look for new positions to take. But this morning, where we were making our pit stop on the way to our final destination, I thought I would have internet, and I just could not get any signal. So that's why we had to postpone the morning webinar for a video update today. But the video update is going to cover everything that I want to watch this week and trade this week. So let's get right down to it. So first off this week, it is Monday, April 1st. So that means we are at the very start of the month, and that also means that we're in the first week of the month, which is U.S. and Canadian employment numbers at the end of this week. So Friday morning we'll have a live non-farm payroll session. That should be exciting. We'll talk about all the things that are happening there and everything that we have going on with that. So that should be exciting. So Friday we'll have some news coming out. Finally, Australia and New Zealand are taking some big daylight saving shifts, and so everyone's going to be past the spring ahead fallback situation, which is always so confusing. Anyways, we got a little bit of news this week. Nothing too terribly crazy. We do have Australian interest rate news. The rate statement is happening today. Yeah, actually later today in about 9 hours or so. So that's coming. Tuesday, a little bit of news there. We've already seen a little bit of U.S. news, which has been weak, which has been quite a bit worse than expected. You saw we had core retail sales came out at negative 4%, looking for a 4% movement, or 0.4%, and came out at negative 0.4%. So pretty bad miss on that. Manufacturing as well, looking for a positive 0.3%, came out with a negative 0.2%. Things are looking bad on the numbers in the U.S. But it just means some of the rallying strong bullish markets are slowing down just a little bit. But we've got some news this week. We've got some things happening. Wednesday's pretty dead. Thursday's pretty dead. So we don't have much news right in that middle section of the week. But the first part, Monday, Tuesday is pretty exciting, and then Friday should be exciting. Wednesday, Thursday might be a little bit quiet, kind of middle of the week movement. So we'll see how that plays out. Okay, let's talk about some of the trades we have running. Let's talk about what we want to do, how we want to do it, all of that good stuff. So first off, we have the dollar index here. As I've mentioned, I don't know. The only possibility that I see on the dollar index is that it runs up. Well, excuse me. The only two possibilities is that we get the dollar index running up to the 100 level. We're at 97.26. So we get it up there, 200 and change pips from where it is, 275 or so pips. And then it drops a bunch. That's possibility number one. But possibility number two is it just drops a bunch. So one way or another, the dollar index is going to have to weaken. It might need to make a little bit of a push higher before it dips. Otherwise, it might just dip. So that's kind of what we're stuck waiting on, and that's why some of these dollar pairs have been so tricky to trade because we're waiting for either that big run up, or excuse me, that small run up and that big run down, or we're just waiting for that big run down. Either way, I think the dollar is headed south. It just has not wanted to do that yet. So we've got all these great targets down here, but that 100 level is a nice, good, even round number. And there's some stuff happening up there that, that might just be where it's headed. So we're watching, we're waiting, we're keeping an eye on that. And I really only bring this up because we're watching the euro dollar, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But let's talk, first off, let's talk about some of our open positions. So we have New Zealand CAD, and we have the Aussie New Zealand. Now, Aussie New Zealand, we got into Aussie New Zealand, we got out of Aussie New Zealand, took some good profit, got back in on a dip at 104.10, and now it's in some decent little profit. So if you, it's not, it's not running crazy, but it's doing all right. So we're in Aussie New Zealand, as you can see right here, 104.10. And here's what I'm doing, and I've mentioned this a couple of times here. I want to scale into this trade, but here's kind of how I want to trade this thing. Aussie New Zealand is we had this big breakout, we had this big run, and it looks so bullish to me that I'm having a hard time wanting to say, hey, let's wait for this big pullback and this big dip before we start buying again. Because you might be thinking to yourself, I see a big market imbalance right here at 103, 35, 40 area, and now, besides that right there, we have now a monthly pivot, and now we also have a daily pivot, and it's kind of making us think a little bit. Where's this thing headed? And so that's possibly what you're telling yourself, and I couldn't agree more. What I want to do though is, because this is so bullish, and we're up a little bit of a chunk now. We're up 34 pips on this trade, with spread and everything, maybe a hair less than 30, 34 pips, somewhere between 30 and 32, 33 pips, somewhere in there. I just want to be in this trade, because even if this thing dips down and takes out this monthly pivot, or even further takes out that market imbalance and starts heading higher, I just want to be in this so bad that I'd rather scale in on these guys and buy in, at 103.80 and or 103.40, and then continue trading it higher. I just really don't want to miss this trade. I think it's a great trade. So that's why we're in. We got in on this little double bottom dip right here. We got a really great entry. So I feel really great about where we are. If you want to take profit, if you want to lock in profit, I will not judge you, and it's always a great idea. Making profit is absolutely the goal. And if you take 30 pips on this trade, that would be awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think there's a bigger play here, and that's why I want to see that kind of stuff happen. And that's probably why I'm going to allow my trade to run. I'll keep you guys updated, of course. If I say, you know what, let's close out with 10 or 20 pips or 15 or 30 or whatever, and let this thing dip down and buy into these dips, I'll let you know if that happens. If you want to do that on your own, feel free. But like I said, I want to make sure that I don't miss this movement. That's why I'm aggressively getting in without any pullback. And I'll add on pullback. I just want to make sure I don't miss this move. We're looking for a push, at the very, very least, into about 105.20-ish area. If we can get to 105.20, great. Great. But I think we can get much higher than that. But I think 105.20 is a pretty safe bet. So that's what we're looking for in Aussie New Zealand. So, most likely I'm just going to let this run. I will let you know if anything changes, but I'm just going to let this run, and I will buy dips. I'll add on dips right here. Boom. And maybe right there, depending on how the market movement looks. But excuse me, that's what I want to do. And for those of you that might have gotten in too big at 104.10, you're thinking to yourself, this is just going to go our way, and I don't want to scale in. Make sure you're not in too big. Maybe take a partial profit up here at this little triple top. Maybe close half your trade out, and just be prepared to scale in on some of these dips. Okay, hopefully that's clear. We're in. We want to add on dips, and we want to trade it up into 105, 106, 108, and so on. Okay, Aussie, New Zealand. Questions, comments, let me know. I'm just going to talk about, some of the favorites. Let's talk about New Zealand CAD. Now, New Zealand CAD here, we got into Aussie New Zealand, we got into New Zealand CAD. They both ran a good little chunk in our favor. We closed out Aussie New Zealand and bought back in on the dip. New Zealand CAD, we did not close it out. We left it open at 91.60 and said, we're just going to let this thing ride, and I want to make sure that we get some bucks out of this thing. And if it pulls back, we'll add on the pullback. Otherwise, let's just let this thing go. So as we go over here to New Zealand CAD, same kind of situation as Aussie New Zealand, right? We have a big market imbalance right here. We've got a big weekly pivot right here. That daily pivot, it pulled back and hit that daily pivot, which was encouraging. And now it's breaking these lows. I'm looking for New Zealand CAD to get at least to 9,000. This little guy right here. You can see that there's a market imbalance down here. There's that monthly pivot that's already been hit, and that's it right at 9,000. But 9,000 is a good round number. Our market imbalance is down here at 89.80. That's kind of my minimum, that's kind of the area I'm trying to get to, is around this 89.80 to 9,000, give or take 20 pips. So I want to get down there, and then we can start talking about, what we want to do beyond that. So Currently, we're just shy of 100 pips in profit. We're in at 91.60, and it's currently at 90.68, so we're 100 pips in profit. If this just runs down to this 9,000, I'm going to take profit because there's starting to become enough targets up here that I think we could see this thing pull back just a little bit. But overall, I still like that 8,800 and even lower. So I'm still liking short New Zealand CAD, but we're in some good profit. We're going to let this thing continue to run and just get it down there. So for the moment, I'm just trying to hold on to 9,000 as a possible target. Okay. So that is that's what we have there. That's what we've got going on. Hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Any questions, comments, don't hesitate to let me know. Let's talk about one or two dollar pairs for a moment. Real quick, we see the dollar kind of running all over the place. I am still, and I'm actually very happy about this, dollar peso has run down. We grabbed, in my other trade group, we grabbed a couple of pips on that dollar peso dip, and it's happened very nicely. So great little profits on dollar peso. If we see the dollar strengthening a little bit more, like it's trying to make that run up into that 100 mark on the dollar index that we talked about, we're sitting at 97.25. If it makes its run up into 100, I think the dollar peso could be a great trade. Okay, so what I'm looking for, we've got a couple of missed pivots down here on dollar peso. We've got a couple up above as well. Here's a daily pivot up here. We hit the weekly and monthly pivot already. Here's a missed daily pivot here. But first and foremost, we got this big, beautiful, wonderful market imbalance down here. So I'm going to just see what this dollar peso might have in store for us. And I'm going to look for opportunities to potentially buy this dip. So if we get this back down to 19.00 and even 18.995 area, then that is going to be something I'm going to be keeping an eye on. So dollar peso is on my radar. I want to get it down to this market imbalance. I don't want to trade it down to the market imbalance. I don't think there's a good entry right here. I want to get it down to that market imbalance and then start potentially buying into this dollar peso because we still have some great targets. It came up and it nicely hit this 19.5-ish area that we were looking for. So we've hit some of those upper areas. But keep in mind, dollar peso still has 3 consecutive missed weekly pivots and a monthly pivot and a market imbalance over here at 19.85. So any opportunities to buy some dips on this thing and trade against the bottom of this big trading range that has been in place since January of this year, hit those lows, bounce up, hit those lows, bounce up, hit those lows, bounce up. Here it is hitting these lows once again, or at least hopefully heading towards these lows and ready to bounce up and get into that 19.5, 19.85 area. There could be a massive trade in the works there, and I'm going to watch that dollar peso. So just set your alarms for 1900 and 18.9. I'll say 18.95. So 19.00 and 18.95. Those are kind of the two areas that I'm going to be watching. 19.00 and 18.95 are going to be the areas that we want to set those alerts and start watching and being ready for a move. So that's kind of where I'll be on the dollar peso. Everyone good on that? So that's what I'm looking for on dollar peso. Speaking of other dollar pairs, I'm looking for something fairly similar on the euro dollar. Now, euro dollar just has basically gotten more and more appealing as it continues to dip down. Now, euro dollar has hit some of these lower levels and it's doing some of this stuff. It just continues to leave targets. So we have market imbalance, weekly pivot, another market imbalance up here, or potentially, a double dose right there. Monthly pivot, weekly pivot, all missed targets, and we've taken out this these two guys right there. So those are kind of out of the way now. So what I'm kind of looking to see if we're going to get is this kind of movement right here. I want to see if we get that movement. I want to see if we get, maybe we get down into kind of that 111.75, 111.85 kind of area. I want to see if we can get down into some of that and create a nice little well, a nice big aggressive double bottom right there. And as you kind of can see this little area, we've got a little activity happening there. If we duplicate that and kind of see how this is playing out and what's going on, then we've got a bit of a, just look at this with me here for a moment. We've got a bit of a falling wedge. It's not a huge one, but it's a falling wedge on the 1 hour chart, and it's looking pretty decent actually. And so what I'm kind of wondering is, are we going to get some of this activity here and then start trading this up? So I like euro dollar. I think euro dollar is going to be a great little trade, but I want to make sure that we can get down a little bit more. We're right here at 112.08. Let's get down here another 20 pips, and then we'll start looking at that. I'll place a pending order if things are kind of looking okay. I want to let things stabilize a little bit. We've got non-farm payroll coming this Friday, so we don't want to, stick ourselves in a situation that could be kind of tricky to manage. But for the moment, I think euro dollar looks great. We've got, big targets back over here. If we go to, some of these guys over here, we've got some big, awesome targets. 116.50, I think, is a minimum area for the euro dollar to head to. But for the moment, we've got some really good targets right in here. Weekly, monthly, weekly, market imbalance, etc., etc. Looks awesome. So euro dollar should be a great trade coming up, and I'm pretty much totally ready for it. But I just want to make sure that, let's let this dip a little bit more. Let's let it consolidate a little bit more, and it should be an awesome trade. So buying euro dollar, hopefully below 112, targeting at the very least 113.45, 50 area. And then we'll reassess everything from there. Okay, that's euro dollar, Aussie New Zealand, New Zealand CAD, dollar peso. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this euro Swiss for just a moment. Now, for those of you that are in my other trade group, the scanner group, we got into the euro Swiss early last week because it was doing this right here, right? So we had this big great bar count here on the 30-minute chart that finally hit right at about 400 bars, right there. So it hit that, and it's looking great. So the bar count is taken out, but that was only part of the reason of the trade. And now that there's no longer much of a bar count, I mean, technically, I guess you could say that we're developing a bit of a bar count here on the hourly chart, but it's still pretty early and new. It's only 200 change. But Euro Swiss looks awesome because we have a lot of targets up above, and I'm pretty interested in this whole Euro situation. So we've taken out, the bar counts, but the targets are still there. And so this guy right here, this 112.90-ish looks awesome. This weekly pivot over here at about 112.65. That's kind of what I think I'm going to aim for, is that 112.65. But I think I could see it going up to that 112.90. That could be a good little spot. And we have a monthly pivot now at 112.36, and we have some of that going on. So I think there's going to be some opportunities if we see this thing dip down just a little bit into these lows again, 111.60, 70 area. That's going to be good to start buying into and just going for. So I like the Euro Swiss because I like the Euro dollar, and I like kind of what the Euro pairs are finally setting up and giving us. I think there's some pretty darn good opportunities there on both those Euro pairs, and so I want to really kind of, I want to trade the Euro dollar on a little bit of a dip. I think Euro Swiss could give us a pretty excellent opportunity as well. Like I said, we've been in this one for a week or so, but I think there's a lot more to come. So Euro Swiss is going to be good. Euro dollar is going to be good. Aussie New Zealand CAD, Euro dollar, dollar peso. I think that's where all of my energy and time and focus is going to be this week. On probably those, how many pairs? I think that's 6 pairs. Aussie New Zealand CAD, Euro dollar, Euro Swiss, dollar peso. 5 pairs, I guess. And so that's probably where I'll be most focused this week. I think we have some great trades coming up. We've already got some great trades in the works. The New Zealand CAD's up 100 pips. Aussie New Zealand's up 30 plus pips. And we'll start looking at Euro Swiss, Euro dollar entries as we go as well. I think there's going to be some good opportunity there. So Good things are happening, guys. Good things are happening. Another profitable week last week, and hopefully another profitable week ahead of us this week. So should be awesome. Thanks for being on. Sorry for missing our webinar this morning, but I'll keep you guys updated. We'll have our webinar and a live non-farm payroll session this Friday. And I'll have lots of trade updates and details coming as the week goes on. Thanks, everybody. Happy Monday. Hopefully it's been a good one for you all. Take care, guys.